Okay. All right. Am I recording? I ain't got my, let me put my glasses on. See if I'm recording, because I can't tell. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, that's good right there. Oh, should we turn on these lights? How y'all doing? I'm missing like Grandma T. Come on in, get settled down. Come on in. Get settled down, get settled down. Get settled down. The show gonna start momentarily. Get settled down. Come on in. Relax. Get settled down. Get your key. Text is ready to say what you gonna say. Come on in. Ooh, I need some better bras. These bras don't be hot. Listen, hear me out. Hear me out. Come on in. Get settled down. Okay? Get settled down. Come on in. Get settled down. We're gonna start the show momentarily. Okay? Okay. Hear me out. Hear me out. Bluebird. Come on. Hear me out. Come on in. Sit down. Come on, sit down. Get comfortable on your couches and shit. Get ready. Oh, can I curse on the? Okay. In your couches and shit. Come on. Get settled down. Welcome to Be Less Petty, the live podcast. Before we get started, we gotta de-pedify ourselves. I know. The words sound like pedophile. I told Kellye it wasn't a good word, but she young, and so shit. When you're young, you just do young dumb shit. So we gonna come in and to de-pedify ourselves. Meaning be less of the petty person we was before we got here. We gonna do this video. Okay. It's a relaxation video. Okay. So relax. We gonna play the video now, and you just get settled in and listen to the sounds of the video and breathe.
Yo, what up, world? It's your girl, Kellye Howard, here sharing my personal experiences on how being petty almost ruined my life. Yes, all those petty ways and consuming my precious days just and petty thoughts just, why he packed like that? Why is she looking at me? Is she? Can you believe she coming on my post saying XYZ? Did what? Just pettiness. Just all consuming. And I know you want to be less petty too, don't you, girl? Well, check out these bars. Hey, be less petty with your time. Okay. Be less petty with your mind. Be less petty with your blame. All that petty shit is lame. Be less petty with your friends. Love first. Make amends. Be less petty with your life. Be less petty with your wife. Okay. Be less petty with your mom. Be less petty with your job. Be less petty. Be less petty. Be less petty, baby. Body aches, migraine, chronic illness, anger pains. All it comes from is being petty. Hey, I'm telling you now, you don't want to do it. Nope. Cause that petty shit will have you in ruin. Hey. Social media, yep, be less petty there. Cause all them petty comments ain't gonna get you nowhere. You don't even want to be petty. Sure don't. I feel it. You just doing it. Cause it's socially acceptable, but don't nobody want no more. We wanna move on to a new times where we can love and spit these rhymes like what? I wanna love everybody, but is that even possible with this petty behavior?
Yo, what is up, my loves? Welcome to Be Less Petty Comedy Self-Help Podcast. I'm your host, Kellye Howard, and I am so excited about today's show. We have a phenomenal guest, Alex Garcia. I am really excited to have her on. She is a primary therapist over at Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center. And as y'all know, I talk very openly about mental health, mental illness, all of those things. So I am really excited to be talking to somebody that can give me a little bit deeper insight on my own mental health. Because every time I talk to a therapist, I'm always like, so I was diagnosed with bipolar mania. Do I got it? Yeah, no. Like I'm in their face. So I love to talk to mental health specialists. It just really lights my day up. And of course, we have my homegirl as my guest co-host today, Miss Lisa Beasley. Yes, y'all already know my homegirl. I forgot to make that transparent. I'm still supposed to be here, y'all. My homegirl, Lisa Beasley, is on the show. How about the stream right now?
Gotta make it a PNG, Kellye.
I know. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Show day, I got to get a better schedule because what I do is on show day, I do all of my editing of the new show stuff, like the links, the pictures for this and all of that. And I'm realizing that that's just not enough time.
You know what? Who's your producer? You should be having help with stuff like this.
You.
I'm on the next one, girl. Now that I know that, I'm going to alleviate that, girl.
You know what, though, low-key, I think you told me, like, if you need anything, if you need any graphics, if you need anything done, let me know. And because I'm a control freak, I never let you know. So I think that's what that was.
And yeah, I just want to let y'all know that I've been doing graphic design for about, 47 years. And I taught Kellye everything she knows. Sure, her husband does it too. He's a creative or whatever. I taught her everything she knows, except to not use a PNG.
Yes, my bad. You know what?
Oh no, I ain't gonna give you no smoke for that.
Thank you. That's not even the pettiest thing I've done all week. So let's not beat me up for that. Now, you know, we got to get to the juicy stuff of your petty behavior this week. What was tell me. Ooh, I want to know.
Oh, my petty behavior of the week. I was supposed to have thought about this. Okay,
so you're not prepared. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm not. I'm this is what I call Black privilege, where, I get to just be like half as good for once, and I choose little moments And when I saw, I was like, I'm not gonna prepare for that. I'm gonna be
Classic.
mediocre.
Thank you for exercising your right to Black privilege. You know what though? I will say thank you so much for even being here, because I know you were last minute for me reaching out to you because of our other co-host being sick, and you was a team player off the gate. Like, let's do it. So
Hey,
it's always a good time.
I may not pick up the phone when you call, but I always will do a guest host spot on time.
I can't with you.
I ain't shit.
So if you don't have a petty story, I can share something.
Okay,
but I feel like you do.
Okay, so my petty story. I'm sorry. My mom got ordained this past Sunday. So I'm gonna say the week started Sunday. She this is her third time
That's
being
amazing.
ordained. Yeah, this is her third time being ordained. At first it was minister, and now she's a deaconess. So every time I talk to her, I call her Deaconess Beasley. The petty part though.
So is that what the female deacon is called? A deaconess?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, for churches that still sit really harsh on the binary line, which is all of them.
Right.
But yeah, she is now a deaconess. The petty moment of the week was I did not have to be on that many edibles while I was there.
Definitely a petty moment of the week.
But I also had to. The petty moment also is like a lot of funny things get said at church. And I forgot that I haven't really been inside of a church in a very long time. Mm-hmm. And I forgot that, like, when you say stuff, even if you got on a mask or not, people go hear you. It's not a TV screen. They're there. So there's this part of the ceremony where they're supposed to, the pastor says, will you, da, 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 and they say, I do. And every time there was a distinct I do, like from the crowd, and I added one of them in there because I just thought it was fun to come in a hair after everybody, be like, I do, because you got on your mask. It's the perfect time to play pranks at church.
So you was petty in that way. You felt like you should have been more respectable of
I was too
ceremony. High. That is definitely a petty. You knew you was going to watch your mama become a deaconess.
But can I tell you why? And you are the person who will truly cherish this. This is the same church where my daddy's funeral was at. And girl, they sat me in the same seat, girl.
Okay. It was probably a little triggering. I
started to be like, weren't you there? Didn't you know where I sat 3 years ago?
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I plan on working through that with Alex today.
You should work through that with Alex. Your trigger points. My petty moment was not that. You know what? I had two of them. Okay. So one of my petty moments was I was driving. You know me. I got my little BMW i3. It's like literally a go-kart. And so I drive it like it's a go-kart.
Still sound like a brag to me.
It's totally not a brag. Oh my God, no. No, but I drive like 97 miles per hour everywhere I go. It doesn't matter. It's pretty bad. I definitely am in a race with everyone. And so I'm doing my thing on Lakeshore Drive, in and out of traffic, right? Not even thinking about the people I'm around. And then I get to the stoplight where you turn onto Roosevelt, and a woman, a Black girl, I don't know what it is with these Black girls and lashes, following me, but she looked at me, and all I saw through her tinted windows was her lashes blinking, and she had an attitude. She had an attitude at me. She was like, and she kind of rolled her eyes, and so I was in a great mood. I was on my way to my trainer. Like, I had my protein smoothie. I was like feeling myself this morning. And so instead of like feeding her back with this anger, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna be petty. And I just looked at her and I smiled and I was like, oh, me? Right? And that pissed her off. I was like, you're upset at me? And she just like pulled off, and she was mad as hell. And it kind of bothered me for a while because I was like, Kellye, you didn't have to do that. that was petty. You feed into the same energy that you look at other people for having. Like when people speed around me and act like assholes, I look at them and I'm like, so here I am doing the same thing to her. And I'm like, Kellye. But that didn't really hit me that hard because I don't be giving too many fucks when I'm driving. Like my petty ways don't
But
bother
in Chicago, can you though? You like got to keep your eyes on so many things.
There's so much happening in Chicago
Pedestrians, bikers, crackheads, police, construction, so much.
And on the South Side, none of those things wait for anybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was just describing Uptown alone. So the South Side is everybody just like, I gotta get to where I gotta go, and I gotta go this way.
And I'm talking guys with carts riding dead across Stony Island, a 4-lane highway. It's crazy.
They like to, act like South Side ain't got no education. These niggas out here know that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line
across the street, and they don't care if you stopping or not, and they dare you to hit them. They be like, hit me, and you scared because everybody dying on the South Side, so you don't want to hit him because he might kill you. You like
this can't be the day.
I don't know what to do. So we have run out of time of petty stories, which is good because I really didn't want to share the other one anyway. I was a little uneasy about it, and when I'm uneasy about a petty story,
I think we should dive in for more. This is when I move over into the guest host spot.
Okay, you know what? Okay, here's the thing. And it might be more relatable actually to the viewers that are at home with mates and stuff like that. So
did you say mates or mates?
Mates. Mates.
Okay.
Like
this, okay. This don't apply to me. Okay.
Yeah, this don't apply to me.
I'm gonna go on mute. I'm gonna let you.
You're gonna go on mute? Damn. You like I'm out the conversation completely because this don't apply to me. No, so Mike was kind of frustrated with one of our daughters this weekend or this week. She's moody. She's at the age of moodiness, and so he was a little frustrated by her moodiness. And I was in the process of like reading a script and getting ready to do a self-tape, and I just was like engulfed in what I was doing. And it was a long script. It was 130 something pages, and it just was taking a lot of my attention. That wasn't the audition. That was the actual movie, but it was just a lot. And I'm reading this and he's talking about it.
Pause. You read all the scripts? Do you read the whole thing for all your auditions?
It depends. If my manager has access to the script or the pilot, I do, because it informs my character if I know a little bit more about their behavior.
Well, aren't you a real actor? I gotta go step my motherfucking game.
I try. Somebody said lashes can be pretty triggering. So I'm reading this and he's like going on, and I'm just in one of those modes of like I think she's a kid. I mean, she's a teenager. She's in her feelings. That's what they do, right? And I'm like over the conversation, and I basically say it like that in kind of a mean way of like, so what? Like, get over it. And I was very dismissive, and I felt really bad about it afterwards, which is what makes it petty, because you know that if something is continuing to bother me, or if I'm ruminating over it, right, then it's petty on my time and my space, and my energy, actually, everything. And so now I'm going through this script, trying to do what I got to do while still thinking about how I just might have been deflective and hurtful and all of that. And so it just was a moment of like, okay, Kellye, if you didn't have time, it was probably a much better way of saying, hey, can we talk about this later? Because right now I'm really in this script. So yeah, that was my other petty thing this week. I didn't really want to talk about it, but you made me.
It's okay. Alex is here.
She's going to help heal it all.
Mm-hmm.
And we should bring her in.
We're going to heal everything.
We're going to heal everything. We're going to heal everything. In fact,
audience, you're in for a treat.
I'm so ready to be healed by her. And because I forgot to PNG her, you get to see her fully on this screen right now. I am so excited to bring in Alexandra Garcia. She is a primary therapist at Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center, which is a national health organization that offers residential partial hospitalization and intensive outpatient programs for adults and adolescents. She is knowledgeable about her shit. And I love that she started her career in early childhood education, which gives her a little bit of a peek into the child's mind.
Ooh, I got a lot of questions.
Because that's where the trauma starts, right? The trauma starts in the child's mind, and then it seeps into the adult life. So with no further ado, can we all give some snaps or some welcomes in the chat, some claps, some hands for Alexandra Garcia?
Hey, hi. How are you guys? I'm so excited.
Yes, we're excited to have you. So let's clarify this real quick. Alexandra or Alex?
Alex.
Okay, cool. I saw it on the bio and was like, maybe she want to use her whole name for professional purposes.
It's okay. It's all on the promo stuff, so they know my full name by now.
Cool, I know, right?
They know who I am.
Right.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for doing this, taking time out. How have you been? How's your day been?
It's been good. This week I haven't been it hasn't been the best week, but tomorrow's Friday, so we almost there.
It hasn't been the best week. Like maybe something petty happened.
I mean, maybe. Should I share mine?
Yes. Why not? I mean, we're all out here being vulnerable. Why not share this?
You're right. All right. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have an all-staff meeting where
we hate it.
Right. Virtually, we're all in person, but we log on virtually. So that's already annoying. But what we do is we go through each of our patients, right? And we give a brief summary, hey, this is Kellye. This is what she has going on. This is what she's working on this week. The doctor will chime in. And some clinicians will go on and on. I will turn off my camera, make coffee, and come back. And the clinician is still going on. This is a quick recap. So I will be doing my makeup sometimes. Today I wasn't doing my makeup. Today I was answering emails. I was just working. So I wasn't engaged. I wasn't, adding clinical as we were going through these patients. I was just annoyed and I wanted to get my day started. So I was a little short and dry this morning.
Short. We all have our moments of shortness. Yeah. I think it's okay because I was short with Mike, and I feel bad about it.
Right.
I have a question. Were these people? I'm personally curious. These people who were talking too much. What did they look like?
As you blow out the smoke of your blood.
Right. What do you mean by that?
What are their complexions?
I mean, my complexion is real light as well, but they were, white.
They have a way with a lot of words, so It was you probably heard a whole bunch of nothing when they could have just been so-and-so was discharged today. It probably started with, initially around 9 a.m. I thought that maybe yesterday we were going to be able to go in and recover that, but then I realized that then we had their brother call.
I can't. Come on.
Oh my God.
That's exactly it. You're right.
Let's try not to put Alex in any compromising situations today on this show.
She did already expose them for having in-person virtual meetings. I'm done with it.
The COVID life, man, it's crazy.
But I'll probably be coming to visit y'all soon.
We were talking about race. We were curious to know, what are your thoughts on Latinx? Because I have a habit of saying Latina just because I learned Spanish, and so it's just but I'm no, I got to do Latinx now, and I don't know. Is it how do you feel about that? Do you prefer to be referred to as Latinx?
So you know what? For me personally, as a Latina, I like Latina. I want to be called Latina, and I feel very passionately about that. I think it's it sounds very empowering, and I've grown up to express myself in that way or label myself in that way. And I think with pronouns and labeling in general, I find it distasteful when anyone is a little too, what's the word? When folks don't have patience or they're not willing to have a dialogue about it, or they're telling you how you should name a whole group of people. If you identify as Latinx, I love it, I support it, and I will use Latinx. If you identify as Latino, I'm going to say Latino. If you change between the 2 or 3, then you can do that. I just don't think anyone should say it should be always Latinx, because for me personally, I don't use Latinx. And I think part of it is my age. I mean, I'm not that old. I'm 31, but Latinx wasn't a thing when I was growing up. I know why it's used, and I want to be gender inclusive for everyone, but I think all folks should choose and just share what kind of, how you want to be identified.
I wonder, speaking of which, how much has the pronouns and the labeling, especially being highlighted so much as of late, impacted your patients or people coming in with mental health things? Is that like a thing that they're struggling
pronouns
with? Yeah. The pronouns, the changes in general.
Yeah, I think, well, changes in general, for sure. People have been struggling. Work has been, it's crazy. On one side, it's a blessing to have had a job, but I've been so busy at work. And yeah, so it has come up, and specifically with pronouns, I think within the transgender community, it's always has been an issue for them, but more specifically, like the language for me, and as a clinician, I have to stay on top of all these changes and ensure that I'm doing my homework. So you just have to do your homework and ask. And sometimes I make mistakes, right? Sometimes I make mistakes as well. And all I can do is kind of lean into those mistakes when I do misgender someone.
Yeah. Misgender.
But that's also, there are a lot of people that, and I know that misgendering someone comes with a lot of pain and a lot of struggle. I think sometimes people can have a little more patience with that. And I'll leave it kind of at that.
Yeah, I would assume so, because if I've known you your entire life as a female, and then you decide to go by he, him, and that's your prerogative, but how am I mean, it's habits, right?
Habits.
Be Less Petty is an entire podcast about reconditioning our thoughts around our habits, our petty ways, these things that continue to keep us in a certain space. So if I've been calling you this, it's going to be a habit.
Yeah.
To say her or she for a while until I correct that behavior,
Right. And it's also a habit to look at someone though and assume like Kellye's a woman, right? So even I don't know these patients, right? But if I see someone, and now obviously I'm experienced in the field, I never assume anyone's pronouns ever. I don't care what they look like. They could look like the manliest of men. If I meet you, hi, Kellye, how are you? What pronouns do you use? And I say, what pronouns do you use? Not prefer, because that's also a problem. I don't prefer to be a woman. I am a woman. So if you ask a transgender person or a person in general, what do you mean prefer? I'm a woman. What do you mean? I'm a man. So even in the way you ask them, you can start off on the wrong foot, but I never assume. I always ask and I always try to get it right. But if I see you, Kellye, you're a patient, you present as what in my mind is a woman, right? So I might say, someone might say she or her on accident, even another fellow patient, and you might be misgendering that person. So sometimes people don't even present with the kind of pronouns they use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the thing for us to also consider is that like the people that's on the side of being impacted by it, how they feel does trump what the person whose good intentions was. Because I think the thing is that like with every just thinking about just triggers and painful stuff, it's just like you could have been the 50th person after the 49th abusive, you know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things where it's going to take both to just be like, yo, keep reminding me, but also the thing of like not judging how someone reacts to pain helps me a little bit, where it's like whatever reaction I get is the one I deserve, because that's how they were feeling. And the only thing I could do is like, because I think stuff like that gets people to the point of like, you know what, never assume, just ask, because that's the place we need to be.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. So let's get into some mental health talk around outside of pronouns, but just mental health in general, diagnoses and stuff like that. I know that you are one of only, or how many Latinas or people of color work in your establishment?
So on my team, it's myself and one other colleague. She's actually mixed. She's Puerto Rican and Black. Okay. So it's the two of us, and we have the other person of color is an Asian woman. So the three of us together are the people of color on our team.
Have you noticed an imbalance in people of color seeking therapy versus non-people of color?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? I think that comes with access and stigma, right? So there's always, the majority of our patients are white, and then sprinkled in, we'll have some minority patients, always. I've never had a milieu where the majority are Black and brown people, unfortunately.
Now, when you say stigma or access, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Like, what stigma goes around therapy? Because I'm like, oh, I want to see a therapist. I'm gonna call one. I'm gonna find one. What
I think there's so much that goes into it. I think first and foremost, I've learned during the pandemic that a lot of people don't even know where to start, which is okay. I've actually helped a lot of people I've been connecting to services, which I love, like people, and I actually kind of owe people, like two different people, resources. So I will get back to y'all. I love you. But people don't even know where to start, right? Like when we go to the doctor, you probably will, call your insurance, or you just know the steps to take. And I have found that people are confused, and that's people across the board, but especially people of color, right? Then if you are someone who doesn't have insurance, that's going to be a barrier, because for therapy, we're charging insurance. And then also, like I mentioned, I work in a higher level of care. I work in a partial hospitalization program. We call it PHP program. It's essentially a day program. So our patients are on a leave of absence from work or school, and they're with us 7 days a week from like 9 to 4. They go home at the end of the day working on their stuff. A lot of people don't know about that level of care, especially people of color. So, and then the stigma of like getting help, right? Like, am I weak, or it's scary, or I don't even know what this is. So there's so much like that comes with stigma.
Yeah. Or what I heard growing up, don't be telling them white folks your business.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Or being like, we go to church, we don't go to therapy.
Yeah. Pray about it. That's a big one.
Pray about it.
Or the fear of being seen as crazy.
Yeah.
That's huge. Diagnosis, I think, definitely puts people in a box that makes them feel like they're crazy. When you're talking about a mental health diagnosis, you can get cancer, you can get gangrene, you can get anything else. You can get herpes, damn near shit, and be okay with that before, I'm serious, if you get because it's almost like your brain is broke.
Right. Yeah.
And without that. And so when I think about diagnosis in general, right? How often do you see, and I'm talking about this from my own personal, me.
Yeah, right? I was going to say, all my questions are going to be about me.
Yeah. Diagnosis in general, when does a person even know? When do you think a person should seek therapeutic help in their life? When should they go? And that's the question. Let me stop.
First of all, I think everyone... in this country, we treat sick people, and that is the problem. We don't have preventative services, right? We wait to go to the doctor till we're really sick, right? The program that I work at, you need a diagnosis to be there. If Kellye was like, you know what, I want to take 2 weeks off of work to just learn about mental health, learn skills, technically you can't, because you wouldn't meet criteria. And we would be like, no, you can't be here. You're not sick enough, which it should be flipped. So first, to answer your question, to do therapy in general, you all have something to talk about. You've been through a bad breakup that you never spoke about. Trauma, it could be big trauma, little trauma, even just trying it, because you might not need it today, but in a month from now, when something big happens, you have someone to go to. So first and foremost it doesn't hurt to try. And I always say, try now before there's a crisis. Secondly, if you aren't doing well, I would say you probably should start seeking help when your day-to-day is just, you're not yourself. Are you someone who's feeling like, man, I just can't get up for work each day? Or I'm at work and I'm just not concentrating. I'm barely making it. I'm with my friends, things that you normally enjoy. Maybe you're not enjoying them anymore. Like, man, I used to love hanging out with the girls and having wine. And now I'm just kind of just sitting there and going through the motions, and I don't. So really evaluating like what has changed. And and how long has it changed? Sometimes, we have off weeks. I just said this week's been a little off for me, but is it 2-3 weeks now? Is it about a month? So that's kind of the gauge I give, that maybe we need a little more help here?
I have two immediate thoughts. The first one, I made a big reaction to: you can't get the help at your place until you have a diagnosis. So with women, and Black women in particular, we always have later in life diagnosis, if we get any diagnosis at all.
Right.
So is that conversation happening on a systemic level of like, it's not like, here are all the reasons why we don't have Black and brown people in here. One of them being they don't believe Black women when we say anything. So it has taken years on years on years on years for somebody to just be like, yeah, you do have anxiety. And I'm like, word, I could take something for that after
Right.
suffering for so long. So like, what we gonna do about that? Because I would love to come for a 7-day stay and just unpack daily. But
Right. Right.
My second thought, what was it? Oh,
I'm
I
gonna blame it on
forgot
the blunt.
I got really caught up in that first thought. I'm like, you gotta have a diagnosis. We set up the fail.
Well, here's the thing with that's across the board, right? That is across the country. You need a diagnosis, right? When I first saw a therapist in our initial session, and she knew I was a therapist, she was like, "Oh, I'm going to give you adjustment disorder." That's in order to bill your insurance. Insurance is not going to be like, "Oh, okay, Alex just wants to come and talk." I can come and talk, but it's going to be tied to billing adjustment disorder or generalized anxiety disorder. That is our medical model. That's just how our world works. It's unfortunate, right? So that's just how it is. Now, back to what you were saying about not believing Black women and women of color. They are starting to talk about it, and it's starting to change, but it's still slow. So definitely, I think physicians are listening more. And I do want to say, where I work, I really do love that as a clinical team, usually doctors are at the top of the list, right? It's all about the doctor. The world revolves around doctors. I love doctors, but specifically here, I think our physicians, our psychiatrists, they really, really work collaboratively, which I appreciate. I do most of the work with the patients. So our doctor, she'll knock on my door, she'll text me. So we all kind of work as a team, especially with working with all our patients, but with people of color as well.
Yeah. Now, that's so interesting. When I think about doctors listening to, because I remember when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I told her I had multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
And she told me I didn't. She was like, no, impossible. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. You have a pinched nerve. You're a runner. You have a pinched nerve. I was like, no. I have multiple sclerosis. I Googled it. So that brings me to my question. That brings me to how much of Google and internet is interfering with people believing some things about themselves that is not necessarily true? Like, how much of that do you see where people are diagnosing themselves and then coming in with their conclusion of what's wrong?
Yeah, it definitely happens. And I think it happens a lot. I think the world right now, right? It's all on a click away. And some patients aren't really, or some people aren't really ready to hear that they don't have that diagnosis. So that's just where they are. Some people are truly tied to some identities because it has been with them for so long. Like, what do you mean I don't have bipolar disorder or whatever it is? It's like, yeah, we're not really seeing that. So yes, it happens. Yes, we will give them the right information, but I'm always going to meet people where they are. I'm not going to just kick you down, right? I work with you slowly so we can start to kind of form a different identity. And I do want to say with diagnosis in general, and Kellye, we've talked about this, where I work and me as a clinician, I use that as a framework to work with symptoms. I never want someone to feel like this is their identity, right? I'm depressed. I am always going to have anxiety. I even like to change the language, like, no, the depression, the anxiety. Stop saying mine. If you want to, that's okay. But I think language is so important. Like, no, this is temporary. This is right now. So even language that we use, we try to push it away a little bit, and we're never like labeling you on your forehead with something forever.
I remember my second. Oh,
go ahead.
I remember my second point about when is it time to come in?
Yeah.
And when you're not feeling like yourself. So here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Growing is uncomfortable. Growing out of situations is uncomfortable because sometimes everything around you stays the same, but you've changed. And that, to me, gave me a false sense of I should be okay. Ain't nothing changed. But then I realized I did. And I was like, oh, I've been sitting here for a very long time. But then I think about, when people are like, oh, I can't go to work every day. It's really hard to get up and go to work every day. And just like the way our world is structured and the status quo and everything is depressing. Like, because it being built on a capital system, I'm just like, is it catered towards people who, how people be doing that? So I have three questions. How do people get up every day?
That's the first one.
Okay.
That's the first one. The second one is why shouldn't that be depressing?
Right.
And the third thought was just an observation of you can outgrow a thing personally, like by going through whatever healing. And that could bring on depression because like those same people you was enjoying wine with, you probably don't like what they talk about anymore. And it just takes time to get to that point. So either way, go to a therapist and talk about it.
Right.
That's so interesting because me and Alex were talking about on our preliminary call about low-level psychosis that we all have. And so if you could expand on that actually, because I think this ties right into what you're asking about, waking up and wanting to get up and all of this that's happening within us, this energy that is lost. That's what I'll call it.
Do you want me to explain low-level psychosis?
Well, talk about low-level psychosis as well. I guess that's different from depression. I'm no therapist.
Yeah. When we were talking about it, we were talking about depression. I think sometimes depression, anxiety, and all of these other disorders, they look different person to person. But there's this stereotype when you think about depression, right? And we were saying that sometimes if someone's sick enough or has been depressed enough, they'll have psychotic features or, low-level psychosis where they might be hearing a few things or responding to something. They're not actively psychotic. Like we wouldn't give them a diagnosis of schizophrenia. It's just really complex depression. We can see that combined with kind of other mood disorders.
So how would a person, if they're struggling with this, aside from waking up and going to see a therapist, right?
Yeah.
If some person has not reached that level where they're like, I want to go see a therapist, what is something else? What are some other tools that they could use to get up in the morning and to still feel as alive as they can until they get to the place of wanting to see a therapist?
Right. I think one, like, how do people get up each day? Like, the patients that we work with come from all walks of life, all educations, like lawyers, nurses, doctors. One, I hope that you are at least content with the work that you're doing. Happy is overused. You're not going to be happy all the time. If you can be happy at work, that's great. But I hope you're not miserable at work. And if you are miserable at work, that needs to change right off the bat. You spend most of your time at work, right? 40 plus hours a week. So that's the first thing I'd love for you to look into. What are you doing? Where are you going each day? Yeah, there are days I don't want to go to work, but in general, like I like my job. I like my team. I like being there. I like being around people, right? I also think a morning routine, right? We're in this kind of society of multitasking where I'm on the phone, in the car with my coffee. And how about getting up like 10 to 15 minutes earlier to just sit up in bed? Right? Like maybe some positive affirmations. One, you have to figure out what works for you. There's so much out there. Self-care is another buzzword that's overused for me. Figure out what works for you. I enjoy coffee, right? When I was at my morning meeting, a little crabby today, I didn't have coffee yet. But if I woke up a little earlier, I would have been feeling a little chipper. So, I think you really, there's so many different things I could say, but I think, enough sleep, waking up earlier. Are you feeling passionate about the work that you're doing? And then back to what we were talking about, are you surrounding yourself by folks that you enjoy being with, or have you grown out? Are we moving on to a different group? So there's way more.
I wonder if a lot of that has to do with people thinking that if they move on from the people that they know or that they think love them or are aligned with them, if they move on from that, they may not find anyone to be, which I think, to just put a nip in that right off the back, I think that when we elevate, our circle finds us, but it is very difficult to move past that, because I know for a long time, for a very long time, I was scared to even be less petty. I was scared to talk about, I'm a comedian. I can't talk about real shit like this. I can't dive in deep about emotions and trauma, because that's not necessarily funny, and then I had this idea that not only that, I haven't dealt with my own bipolar ass trauma and shit that I'm going through, because I'm crazy in my own mind, right? This idea from this diagnosis that's ruminating. Then I'm from the hood, so I'm supposed to be hood. You know what I mean? It's just like all these ideas and labels of myself keeping me small and essentially not aligning with what I want to do. Like you said, if you don't like your job, I guarantee you most of the time when people just hate, like if they're in their job and they hate their job so much, but when they're out of their job, they find a place of peace, then it may be that they're not aligned.
They're not aligned. Values are not aligned, right?
With what they're doing. But if they're sad even after they leave work and they're sad all the time, then that's some deeper shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's give 27-year-old me some advice. Let's say I was working in a donut shop and I didn't want to be there. Or like what's the advice for people who are like, yeah, I'm depressed because I work at Subway and I don't like it.
One, I would say, I also want to say, like, therapists don't only specialize in trauma. There are clinicians that specialize in careers, right? There's so many different specialties. Yeah. So like when I was in grad school, there was a track specifically for folks that was specialized in like higher ed universities, but also had the specialty for careers. So there's professionals out there that can guide you to that process, right? Finding a job as a job in itself can be really stressful financially, mentally. So finding a clinician that can support you through, a career change or starting my career. So I think having a conversation, having someone to guide you through that.
Somebody said, is that occupational therapy? I don't think occupational therapy is.
Not occupational therapy, no.
But she said, is that occupation therapy?
Oh, occupation therapy. That's funny.
That's funny.
Occupation therapy.
Now,
I misread that essence.
Do you have to have insurance for something like that? If you're like 18 and you're like, yo, I got to get out of this Burger King, like,
I can't with you.
Do you have to have insurance for that?
Well, yeah. So I work at a higher level of care where we're billing insurance daily. But even if you're seeing an outpatient therapist like once a week, right? That's the traditional, like the norm you hear. Yeah, they're billing your insurance or you're paying out of pocket. There are nonprofits out there that work on a sliding scale. So if you don't have insurance, Erie Family Health, they are a clinic across the city. They provide physical mental health, dentistry, and if you want mental health services and you don't have insurance, you can get it through them. And there's other organizations out there, so I never want that to be a barrier. So there are other options in the city. I do want to say, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What do you want to say?
We were gonna. It's back to the other topic about people, right? So what's the biggest predictor of happiness? What do you think over the lifespan? What's the biggest predictor of happiness?
Oh, that's easy. A white picket fence, 2.5 kids, a fluffy dog.
Right, that's what society tells you. Okay, Kellye, what is it?
Okay, we got a couple comments from the audience. I don't know if this was in reference to that, but fostering futures. That's not it. Love was another one.
Okay.
I personally think that it's connections.
Yes. It's meaningful relationships.
Yeah, meaningful relationships.
Meaningful relationships. So there was a study, like sidebar, it was a lifespan study done by white men that went to Harvard, but they followed them until they died. And I think if we redid the study with people of color, we would find similar things, right? But the biggest predictor of happiness was not their occupation, not how much money they had, not even how many friends they had, but if they had one best friend, if they had a partner that they loved dearly, those were the folks that were happy for the majority of their life. So just wanted to go back to that point of like the people in our lives, if they're your family or your friends, it's so important to surround yourself by authentic people that you love and people that are going to challenge you too.
Yeah. You know, Mike, when I first met Mike, he had so many friends, and it would annoy me. It was like, oh, you just got all these people that love and like you, and right? but I was also like mega hater. Like, I was the kind of person that hated on everybody around me. I had friends, but they were friends where we were like equally shady to one another. Like, it was like, they weren't like really meaningful relationships. It wasn't until I got in my 30s, late 30s, that I started to really focus on cultivating friendships where I can support women. And because I would hate on women, and I didn't know why that was, but it was because I really did not like so many things about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I could not genuinely feel good for another woman. I couldn't like another woman's success. I couldn't like when another woman was beautiful. It was nothing I could do to congratulate another woman because I was so self-loathing in my own shit. But when I started to work through that, and I created a book club and everything, and I started surrounding myself with women, we really started lifting each other up and just supporting one another. And I genuinely saw my life conditions raise and get a little bit higher. And it's interesting because for years before that, I was meditating, writing, and I was still dealing with depression, heavy depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was because I was in this solo space of like me, when in fact it was like, how do I relate? How do I connect with other people? How do I add light and love to other people? And that's really what it's about. It's like adding light and love to other people.
Yes, absolutely. And that translates to like the pandemic, right? Even before the pandemic, it is hard for adults to make friends. Right? A lot of adults that I work with, like they go to work and some of their friends are coworkers, but it's like superficial, like friends. Mm-hmm. And then you add a pandemic and people haven't left their house in months and they're just lonely. Like people are lonely. They were lonely before the pandemic. The pandemic made it worse. So as an adult, you just have to be so intentional, about making friends.
I like that word. I like intentional. We're gonna make it a
word. You gotta be intentional. You have to be intentional about making friends. Like, reach out to someone like, man, I met Kellye, at this comedy show. She was awesome. Like, let's go grab coffee. But yes.
Now, how do you do that later in life? Because, people like you're in your early 30s, right? So maybe meeting somebody for you might be like that. But somebody that's 45, 50, it might be a little odd to just randomly be like, let's go. Because it's a stigma around the age that you're supposed to have your nook of friends.
Right. No new friends. No new friends.
Once you hit that age, it's like, well, we did it.
You still meet people. Who are you? Where your friends at?
Ooh, girl, you old. No.
But I'm all about meeting new people. I love that
too. The right people, not just anybody.
Not just anybody.
Not just anybody. One, after a certain age, is we just have to get these like stereotypes about life. Like we have to throw them away. Like this, stereotype by like 30, you should have your career set. And like Lisa was saying, the white picket friends and the house. Like, no, what if you want to change your career? What if you want to go back to school? Like, do all the things. We've learned anything over the last year. Life is short. So as you get older, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to take a class? There's this documentary from Brazil that talks about as kids, play is so important. And as adults, we forget about playing and playing being hobbies and things that are just fun. So we get through like kids and careers and making money, but no one's having fun anymore. So I would encourage folks to do what you love. Take a dance class, take a college class, right? You could just like do things that make you happy. And then you will also be surrounded by similar folks that are doing those things. And then, you have to kind of bite the bullet and ask someone if they want to go have coffee.
That's what I love about Mike's parents. They're in their 70s. And before the pandemic, they will go salsa dancing. They have young friends.
Yes.
They have these parties and gatherings. And they're just always, but they're like the happiest, most youthful, older couple that I've ever met. They just have so much life in them. They're always reading. His dad was just in a writing class with me. We were in the same writing class.
I love that.
I'm like gold, right? That's what I want to be when I'm in my 70s.
Why can't you do that, right? And that shouldn't be such a foreign concept. Like if you don't use it, you lose it. That's for your brain and that is for your body. So like keep doing new things.
Before we get over to the question and answer section, because we're right there at the nose on that, I want to talk a little bit about how much you did early childhood education. So you kind of understand that. And then you look at adults that you now counsel or therapeut, if that's a word.
Therapeutize.
Therapeutize.
Yeah.
How much of that, what you learned in early childhood, it has translated into this adult person or these adult people?
Man, that's a topic.
And if you could be a little descriptive about what.
Yeah, I think, well, when I was in early childhood education, I was a preschool teacher, right? So I was with little kids, 4 years old, amazing. Like, I loved my kids. I loved my parents. They were the headache. The kids weren't, but that's a whole different story. You would see emotional kind of issues starting very, very young. So I worked at a preschool in Evanston, and a lot of our parents were professors at nearby universities. They were doctors and lawyers and folks that worked really, really long hours. So I would have kids come in, at 7:45 in the morning, and they would stay for aftercare and wouldn't get picked up, some of them, until like close to 6 p.m. And at just even that, right, doing that 5 days a week, I saw that kids, like, they miss their parents. And I understand you got to keep the lights on, but some of these parents were doing well, and they didn't probably need to work that much. So one thing I noticed, like, the adjustment and the emotional kind of dysfunction for just missing their kids, right? So that's the attachment. Your secure base with your parents is so important. You learn so much about love and safety and everything. So I saw that real life when I was a teacher, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go to grad school to be a therapist. Like, I can no longer do this. So now as a clinician, there's so much that is tied to childhood, right? When we don't have that secure base, we often grow up to be people that probably have difficulties forming relationships, right? Maybe you are the person that's hating on someone and doesn't trust people because you never saw trust as a childhood, right? I said a few DMX passing and substance abuse, one of the biggest predictors for folks with substance use disorder is trauma, childhood trauma specifically, right? People don't develop heavy drug problems for nothing, right?
Now, is weed a drug?
Well, nowadays, I don't know what it is. You tell me, Kellye.
Well, I got a medical marijuana card, so for me, it's medicine.
Right. But I think childhood is so important. Those first years growing up, and all of childhood is really important. And you see adults with a lot of issues, for lack of a better word, and they usually stem from childhood.
I have a present day issue. I'm gonna pretend like we in a therapy session. So I have a daughter. She's 5. I love her. Colloquially and generationally and culturally, the sirens, not now. There's this, children should be seen and not heard. I believe children should be seen and heard.
Right.
And I'm kind of like alt parenting than how generations before have done. Is there a such thing as like loving your child too much? Like, cause sometimes I feel like I hug her too much because I didn't get no hugs at all. And I'm like, am I hugging her too much? She only 5. Is there a such thing as hugging a 5-year-old too much?
I don't think so, but at 5, I'm sure she could tell you if she doesn't want to hug you.
True. And then I say, she does. And I say,
right. Okay. Yeah. So, 4 or 5, they will have a whole conversation with you. So I'll be like, baby, you want to get a hug? Like, no, not right now. Okay. You let me know when I can hug you. So I think a lot of times, and I think you brought up a great point, I do think kids need to be seen and heard. We often feel like we know we do know what's best, but kids are really smart. Involve them in the conversations and explain why you are making a decision, right? Because it gets very frustrating to hear no or to be scolded, but to not understand, like, well, why though? And no one explains the why. I'm not saying give them whatever they want. And let's have a conversation about, why you can't do X, Y, Z. I do see some question.
Yeah, we're going to get to the next question. I just want to say, Mike was that kind of, when we met, he would like explain everything to me. And he's like, okay, honey, here's what we're going to do. Here's where we're going to go. Here's what's next. And I would be like, why are you giving her so much information? Why does it?
Yeah.
It would literally drive me crazy. I'm like, she know where we going when we get there. What the hell is all this? And he was like, I just like her to feel safe. I want her to feel secure. I want her to know that she's in what's happening, in the movement of what's going on. And I just used to be like, this shit is crazy to me, right? But now it makes so much sense because it does build more secure children that become secure adults.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, let's get to this question here. I am a foster parent and would love to know, how do you motivate teenagers that are struggling with mental issues but are not aware of their triggers?
Oh, this is a very good question.
How old are these teenagers? Can I ask that, Cassandra? But you can go ahead and start while she...
Well, one, I would ask, obviously right off the bat, do they have a therapist already? So hopefully they do. Would encourage them to be doing individual sessions and then family sessions, right? So letting them vent and relate individually without mom there, and then having, the foster parent also involved in the conversation. I think motivation with teenagers is really, really hard. How do I answer this the short way? One of the skills that we use with depression and motivation is called behavioral activations. I don't think I have enough time to explain it, but a lot of times with depression, let me not even do that. If they're not aware of the triggers, we have to do that first. You need to have awareness before you can work with anything, right? Like going back to what Kellye's saying, if she was still in that petty moment when she was hating on people, she didn't have the awareness yet. When she had the awareness, then you can change it. So one, I think, let's get that child into therapy, and let's start building some awareness, learning some of this language of skills and mental health stuff, and see what's going on. And then let's talk about what's next.
So therapy is the answer.
Therapy, yeah. Because if they don't have the awareness of there's nothing wrong with me, or they want to know and they don't know, we have to know what's going on.
And our foster kids, I don't know, this might be a question for another person, but is our foster kids given therapy anyway? Because they're going through something traumatic. Is that
I don't believe so. I don't believe so right off the bat. What I've seen, I haven't worked with too many. I've worked with a few families that are have foster children. She said yes.
Oh, she said yes. Yeah.
Okay. I've seen them get therapists once there's something a crisis happening, but it's good to know that they have clinicians before that.
Okay, here's another good question. I need the answer to this.
When is it time to cut the strings on your girl?
Yeah, I'm not a parent, so go ahead, Kellye. Answer that.
Oh, I'm supposed to answer that? Hell, I'm asking you. When is it time?
Is that my mama?
You know what?
I'll answer it. Never.
Okay.
What do we talk about? Cut the strings. So what are we saying by cut the strings? Are you talking about the financial strings? I know my grandmother who's in her 90s, she said, Alex, when you have a kid, you'll never stop worrying about them to the day you die. Right. And so you're always tied to your kids. But I think emotionally, the strings will probably always be there, but I'm not sure what strings she's talking about.
Vicky, put away the scissors.
That's so true. She said, put away the scissors. Ain't no cutting no strings. That is so true, that you always worry about them. My mom still called me and asked me random questions, or text me, don't forget to turn your clocks back. In fact, she's my life reminder at this point, because she keeps me in the know of all the shit that I no longer pay attention to.
Yeah, right.
But when I think about cutting the ties, I'm one of those people where I grew up, I don't know about how many other Black families had this, but I had the kind of parent that they always wanted you to move back in. You know what I'm saying? It was always you can save money if you lived here. This makes more sense. And so I was more just trying to get away. All right. Look, I don't want to be here anymore. So when I think about my own children, I'm like, fly away, birdie, go. I'm pushing so they can go be. But I see that Faith is a little bit more attachy than Mina. Mina's please let me coast. Faith is I just want to be here for however long I can be here. And I really don't know how to feel about that, because Mike is I want them to always have a place home with us. I want them to always be able to rely on us and know that we have their back. And I'm they will never learn unless they burn on their knees. You know what I'm saying? They got to go through the trenches.
Right. I hear you. I think it's important even as an adult. Yeah. How amazing is that if you can pick up the phone, or you have a family member's home that you can go to when you need it, right? We always need that support.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. Let's see what this. And yes, I thought I was an empty nester. I thought I was. I'm not anymore. Corona changed that.
Did you see the code switching question?
Oh, I did. Where's that at? Where's it at?
It's go up a
I'll
little
pop
bit.
it up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Essence. We'll come back to Do you have advice on getting exhausted by code switching or standing up for these cultural movements?
Oh
Let's
my
talk
gosh.
about it. Let's
I
talk
got
You know
about
what?
it.
on that, but
We got another hour.
you go first, and then I got a couple.
Absolutely, absolutely you get tired because the way I speak in team meetings and with our predominantly, white milieu, I don't, I have to code switch, right? As often, even with my light skin, when, some white patients have asked for the Mexican therapist or have asked me several times if I am a therapist, I'm like, why aren't you convinced that I'm a therapist, right? But code switching is the thing, especially in a medical model that is predominantly white. And it is exhausting. It is exhausting. And it is exhausting standing up for these cultural moments. Everyone's talking about, Black Lives Matter and people of color. And there's this whole initiative. And we hired this whole group of people. And one of our last team meetings, I asked leadership if any of the new folks were people of color. And they said yes. And they're actually all white. So today I had to bring it up again. Like, I don't know if folks got it wrong or was someone lying. And the answer that they gave me was like, oh, a person of color was hired for a different location. And I'm referring.
So that's a person of color.
A person. Like, no,
them.
Can all the new people be like this whole cohort was white folks? That's great. Now the next one, let's make sure that they're all people of color. So that's something that I constantly am advocating for, is like bring in clinicians of color, because it's so important to have clinicians of color. So when people of color are with us, hey, if you want, a Black therapist, we have one. You want a Latina therapist, we have one of those too. So it's exhausting, but I would say no matter what profession, like keep having the fight and keep having those conversations. If not, things won't change.
I have one little.
Can you get to it? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I have one little piece of advice. Did you know that if you are Black, rest is radical? Take some naps is one of the most radical acts.
Take some naps.
Take a nap.
I've struggled with that on my code switching, even in stand up. Right? It's like if I'm doing a North Side show, I either gotta be ultra Black, so that I'm Black, or I'm like well put together and articulating my points. And sometimes we don't even know that we're code switching, which is so fucked up too, because I can jump on a phone and I can dial somebody. I know I'm dialing a professional, and I just end up saying, hello, hi, yeah. And I notice, the voice elevation, like, what just happened? You know, it's so weird. And so I've just been trying to be aware of it and to deepen my voice or to stay honest with myself in that moment. It's very, very, very difficult, especially since we've been doing it our whole life. And as far as the cultural movements are concerned, I'm like, I can't keep up with all of it. I can't keep up with all of it. It's so much shit happening. I feel like in my lane, I'm trying the best I can to add healing or joy or something to the world. That's what I'm doing. I'm not gonna be out here marching all the time. I just can't. I don't have it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because you're also doing everything that you can to stay alive.
Right. Exactly. And I think with
that, organic food.
I'd be remiss if we didn't say that, right? With everything going on in the world, like even if you're someone who, like my childhood wasn't traumatic or whatever, like with everything going on in the world, like if you are a Black person right now in this country, like you are probably experiencing something. And I would also encourage you to get a therapist to help you heal from all of this that is going on. It's just too much. It's too much.
This is interesting. Somebody said about that initial question. We'll get back to the other question, but I had nowhere to go. So many times I failed at life. To be able to offer a lifetime plan to my adult children is a blessing. And I guess it's another way of looking at it, is knowing that you can give to your kids what literally not a lot of, but some whites in this country are given just naturally. They're like given this freedom of go out, be creative, go live your life, go become whoever you become.
Right.
I got your back. Versus it's like you Black at a certain point. It's like, nope.
Yeah, and we gotta, and because there's also like this pride thing too. And sometimes their version of having their kids back is like food and shelter. So I think sometimes we blow up what the simple basic needs are, but then again, that's also just how hard it is to get basic needs met.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Borderline independence to foster independence. What is it? Oh, this is another question about young children. So what is a healthy borderline to foster independence and still keep your sanity? I think that's I mean, you may have an answer, but I think that's a personal choice, right? At what point does it become overwhelming? Like, you know, like, hey, I can't, when I wake up in the morning, I'm annoyed that you're here. You know what I'm saying? Like at that point, it might be time for you to move out because you're making my space petty, essentially. I mean, yeah.
I think again, I do want to say, like, I've worked with little kids, I've worked with at-risk youth, and now I work with adults. But again, back to like lifestyle, I think I have nieces and nephews, and hopefully just good role models. So I think, you know, we often tell our kids or nieces and nephews what they should do, and we're not doing it. So having your own like routine, like you're talking about keeping your sanity, of like you having your morning routine and doing your stuff, like it's okay to take care of you as well. And knowing that if you're not okay, then your kids are probably not okay. So not feeling guilty when, hey, I'm taking this self-care. You know what? I am going to take a class or do this for myself, you know, twice a month or whatever it is. I think it's important for kids to see that you have your own identity outside of the family life.
That is so true. Where it's not mom, wife, that's it.
Right. And if you think about like even in Latino culture, right? If you think about moms, most people or grandmothers, right, at home, like the traditional sense, right? Most of their identity was at home, and we love that. But times have changed, right? Our identities aren't only at home. So what else? What else are we involved in?
Wow, I think we have reached all of our questions. This is some great information. I hope everybody got a lot out of it. Before we leave, though, we're going to do this last little tidbit called words, words, words. I'm a huge fan of language. I love words that are, you know, some that like duality is one of my favorite words. I think I love it because I was diagnosed with bipolar mania. So it justifies me. But
I wish you would have told that story. But
you know what? I did want to talk about it. I did want to talk about it, but I wasn't sure. Yeah, you know, I should have told it. You're right. I was diagnosed, just heads up for the people in the audience. I was diagnosed with bipolar mania in 2013. It was right after, like not even a year after I had lost my 15-month-old daughter. I was kind of just in a real antsy space, and I wasn't sad all the time, but I was sad. I had my moments where I tried to muscle up the strength and get through it and be happy anyway. And then I had those moments where I was just really torn and really sad and just unable to participate in the family in a loving, committed way. Not to mention all of the trauma of just my life before then that also was playing into that moment. And so I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I mean, not multiple, that too, but that was a year later. I was diagnosed with bipolar mania. And I told the psychiatrist everything about my childhood, the molestation, just my upbringing, my brother's suicide. I'm talking real fucking trauma, just endless trauma. And I told her everything. And she came back with a straight face, clear as day, bipolar mania, like within not even 15 minutes of reviewing my information. And so what got me about that was that even if I felt like I didn't have it, which kind of triggered all of this self-care journey of like, who am I? Who am I really, right? I don't want to be this. I don't want to be the bipolar mania crazy chick, whatever that is. I want to be who I make myself to be. But in the course of me constantly peeling back those layers and becoming more and more of who I am, I still have that lingering idea of, but are you bipolar mania though? You know what I'm saying? And it's a misdiagnosis. Alex agrees. It's a
And I have to say two things about that. One, I do want to say, like, there's nothing wrong with having bipolar disorder, right?
I don't want to make it seem bad.
No. I just, if you do, it's another mental illness and it can be treated, and folks live amazing lives with bipolar disorder. So the reason that we're bringing it up is it was a misdiagnosis. And sometimes when you meet physicians, they just label you. And that was an example of that. She didn't listen to your history, right? What I told you, Kellye, when we first had this conversation, it sounds like bereavement. Bereavement is long-term grief. About a year after, if you are still in grief, and it's like 12 months, right? The DSM says 12 months. If this person still has complex grief, it's called bereavement. So I would have said, wow, she has complex trauma, has lost a child. This is bereavement, right? Because if you think about bipolar disorder, it's highs and lows in your mood. You were going through that because of grief. So we bring your story up, Kellye, because there are going to be times, just like when you see a doctor about your GI issues or your foot that's been hurting you, sometimes you are going to get misdiagnosed. So if you feel like that's something that's happening, you can get a second opinion. You can talk to someone else about it, because you want to treat what you have, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy because I've spent so many years trying not to like acknowledge that. Yeah. which only enhances it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like the denial of this makes every moment, no matter what it is, even worse, because the question is still there, versus just coming to an acceptance of either I think I have it or I think I don't, right? By doing the work. So yeah, and I wanted to just bring up this last point before we move on to words. We got a couple more minutes. This person said, as a mother, it's hard to participate in self-care without feeling guilty. And I think that somebody else in the audience needs to feel what you got to say about that. Because I came to a conclusion when I started meditating about 10 years ago. My daughter was 11, 12. I came to a conclusion that I don't give a fuck what anybody needs. If I don't do this, I am nothing for them. Like, I have nothing to give unless I take this moment, this fucking 5-10 minutes, right, and just do me. And that's how I feel about self-care in regards to anybody, parents, kids, mate, anybody. So what is your take on that?
Absolutely. You said it, like, period. That's it. You cannot take care of others if you are not well. You have to be well to take care of other people. So being a parent is probably the hardest job you'll ever have, right? Scares the hell out of me, but you're also modeling great behavior. If you need to reframe it, because you talk about reframing all the time in therapy, reframe it. You know what? I'm doing this to be a better foster parent. I'm doing this to be a role model. When they see mom in the sala, in the living room, deep breathing and meditating, wow, what is she doing? It's not going to be a taboo, because you know what? Guess what? I grew up and my mom did self-care every morning. Or how about let's do it together? You had a bad day at school, getting into fights. Let's do some meditation together. Or you know what? How about you develop your own self-care routine? So I totally get it. I hear it all the time, but reframe it and know that you are better for it and they're better for it too.
Yeah, that's so real. Faith has definitely taken into like her own meditation routine. Right. Nina is beautiful. All into her yoga and different, like they both have their things. And this definitely from seeing us do it. So, all right, let's move on to words. Okay. So I'm all about words. She said, thank you. I'm all about words. I'm all about how words frame our life. And so the word of the week, this week was freedom. Okay. So I want to, when you hear the word freedom, Alex, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Happiness.
Ooh, I wasn't ready for that. That was quick. You're like happiness. That's what freedom brings me. Addiction.
America.
Ooh, shit.
That was
family
deep.
trauma. That was deep.
Family trauma. Family trauma. Dark.
Self-esteem.
Overrated. Self-compassion. I replaced that with self-compassion.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Self-esteem is often given by others. Where are you getting self-esteem? No. Self-compassion is from within. So I do self-compassion.
Self-compassion?
Yes.
Come on, okay. Change the narrative. I will never be the same.
Lonely.
It's okay. Why are you trying to change it? Just like anything else, sometimes you're going to be lonely. There's so much urge to change negative emotions. Sometimes sit with it and don't, call an old boo just because you're lonely for a night or two.
Peace.
Always working towards it. Lifetime.
And last but not least, healing.
I think a lifetime again, healing. It's not just one and done. It happens over time. We're constantly working towards it.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you two more questions. Two more words. Petty.
What comes to mind with petty? I don't know. Petty.
Oh, did I stump you on
You
petty?
stumped me.
What?
Maybe I'm just
Of
not
all
petty
words?
like that. I'm just not petty, so nothing comes to mind. No, I need to stop doing that. I'm thinking about my mornings. I just need to stop.
Okay. And bitch.
I like the word.
I do too.
I like it.
But it
I
has
mean,
such a scorned etymology. It's such a negative.
But I'm telling you, there's this oversensitivity now in this culture. Like, if you are not okay with it, that's fine. But if I'm gonna use it with my best friends, that's our choice. And it's also how you use it and the intent. Like bitch, hey bitch, or you're a bitch. Like, woo, I felt that. So how are you using it as well? Matters.
I had a whole shaman rip me my ass for saying, but it's just like a cool word. And she was like, no. Yeah,
really? I see Leo on here. Hey, thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, I was gonna post this. Leo Vega, Chicago. Want to thank each of you strong and powerful women on this podcast for being open-minded, constructive, and helpful with all of the mountains of advice you're giving. Thanks for sharing. Thank you.
Thanks for joining, Leo.
That.
Awesome.
Yes, really appreciate it. We are basically at the end of the show. Yay. I am so thankful for you, Alex, in more ways than I can probably articulate. Lisa B, definitely thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was great. And we Tam, we got so much more that we can dig into. That, and that's always happens. Like, this show needs to be like 4 hours long. I see why Joe Rogan shows are so long, because you don't get into the meat of like what you're talking about until 50 minutes into the damn show. And so yeah, it's some deep shit. Well,
we'll plan a marathon one day, Kellye.
Alex, if you guys have additional questions, is it okay if they ask you via Instagram? Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So if you guys have any additional questions for Alex, you can go ahead and hit her up on Instagram at Alex_2689. That is her IG.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Everybody give a round of applause for Alex as we remove her from the chat. Lisa, I love you. Thank you.
I love you.
And doing this. This was amazing. Next week, I am or not next week, but the week after next, I am super duper overwhelmed at this next show that is coming. We are talking to Dr. Okanta. He is a poet and also a professor of Pan-African studies. And so we will be talking about Yoruba tradition and like all of this really interesting information around spirituality and poetry and music and dance. And I got connected with him because my daughter is in his class at Kent State University. And she comes to me telling me about all these fascinating things that they talk about in class. And I'm like, oh my God, I would love to talk to this guy. So I said, I would love to talk to him. And she was like, I'll ask him if he'll be on the podcast. And I'm like, what? And he said, yes. So we will have Dr. Okanta on the show on the 13th. We will have Dr. Okanta on the show on the 13th. Make sure you set your calendar so you can tune in for that. And it's going to be co-hosted by one of my favorite, most creative comedians / designer / choreographer. She is one of Missy Elliott's choreographers. Missy Elliott's choreographer, Blair Christian. She will be the co-host on that show because she's all about like veganism and African understanding and religion and stuff like that. This is so weird because I don't know.
You gotta commit.
You gotta commit her. So definitely excited to have them two on the show for the 13th. Yeah, and I love all y'all. I love all y'all for tuning in and for sticking it out this entire time. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I guess we done. I guess this show is over. We did it.
And another one.
And another one. And another one. Three in the bag. Gotta keep it moving. Hey.
Is this the latest dance?
I can't. Hi.